Hey everybody, it's Jennifer from Chambana Moms. I'm here with Miss Cherie for Ask Miss Cherie. Today we're talking about something that I don't think any of us really want to talk about, but when a tragedy happens in the world, whether it be violence, death, it's hard to know what to say to our kids. How do we talk about it? And Miss Cherie, I hope you have some words of wisdom.
Well, I do actually. My boys were young when 9/11 happened, and so it was wow. It was like, what do I do with this? And sadly, increasingly in society, we're experiencing tons of publicized things such as shootings, and so that can leave parents wondering. I mean, what do I need to do to help them cope?
Yeah. So you have kind of some 4 steps for parents to
Mm-hmm.
look out for and do to engage kids at all ages, different ages too.
Right, right. So really, if you were to, any one of us can take a look online. I do recommend, there are some great resources out there, and we could actually include some a link to the American Academy of Pediatrics has a whole thing on it, but it could really be summarized into some 4 concrete steps: ask, explain, filter, and watch.
All right. So ask. So what do we need to ask?
So first of all, you're going to want to gauge where your children are at in their current understanding of something, so of an event, a tragedy. So you're going to want to find out what have they already heard out there, and what questions do they still have. So basically, you're going to want to understand that even children as young as 4 years old have been exposed to those sort of graphic images on media. We were surrounded by media, so don't ignore that, and understand that they might have already seen something and they might still have questions.
Yeah, and so I think that probably comes to your next point, which is explain.
Yes. So when you explain, you're going to want to be really, really careful to strike a balance between being too vague, lots of people got hurt far away from us, to being overly graphic. You're going to want to make sure that you're keeping in mind the child's level of development and understanding of the world around them, and just give them just enough information that that they'll understand more than they did before you spoke with them, but that they could actually cope with it.
Yeah, and I think different children different ways.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have a more visual child, you might not show them any images. You might keep the TV off. But if you have a child that needs to know more information, you might share more. You're also dependent on age.
Right. Oh, developmental level is huge.
Yeah.
And so definitely keeping that in mind. Individual differences and differences in developmental levels of,
right,
where they're at. Yeah.
And that kind of goes to your next point with filtering.
Right.
Kind of by each child and age.
Right. And so with filtering, we really want to make sure that once we think the child has a grasp on what's happened, we want to limit repetitive exposure to ongoing exposure to graphic images, and just media that's going to help, the media that's going to perpetuate the trauma. I mean, it's traumatizing to us when we see something. When we continue to see those images, it just keeps you in that negative space. I would say limit that and talk about positive things. Like look at all of the wonderful people that helped out there. Do you think there's something we could do to help those families or those people that were affected? That kind of a thing. Focus on positives and what we can control.
Yeah, I know you were saying your kids. When Sandy Hook happened, my kids were similar ages, and I know just the images over and over again really were in my head, and it's hard. And I think as instances keep happening, people, have a hard time. And maybe, if your kid hears things at school from neighbors or friends, how maybe would you notice if they're not doing so well?
Right, and so that's the 4th step, is to be watchful. Watch to see if they are coping or not coping. So some signs would be that their sleep is different. It's been interrupted, or it's just not the same as it used to be. There are changes in behavior. There are emotional changes that aren't typical for your child. There are physical complaints, that suddenly they have lots of headaches and tummy aches and things like that. And so obviously, if any of those things are ongoing, I would recommend to go to ask your pediatrician for next steps.
Yeah, well, I like that. I hate that we have to sit here and discuss this, and this is
I
the world we
know.
live in. But we are all parenting, trying to navigate how to do that,
Hmm.
even when tragedy strikes our world. And so just know that we support you and we are with you during all of this. And we hope that this was helpful and can help your family facilitate some good conversation. So thank you, and we'll talk to you later. Bye bye.
Bye.